Yo, welcome back to another episode of the Total BS podcast. Justin, what's going on, my man?
How's it going? Part 3 and 4 of the Last Dance documentary already in. I
think this one was better than last week.
I got goosebumps.
You also got
goosebumps.
You also got something in
Sorry.
your chest.
I had to clear my throat for a second.
Hey, you can't cough. You can't cough around people nowadays, man. You never know what people are gonna think.
If you cough in public, people give you the side eye. I'm like, I'm just clearing my throat. I'm just sneezing, and people are like, people don't even say bless you anymore in public.
They just like, man, get away from me.
Yeah, exactly. That's how society is nowadays. But so I'm excited. I'm excited for our second episode of the Total BS podcast, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. Freddie Coleman going to join us later on in the show and talk about that same documentary we were just covering right now. And just so many cool things to talk about, really, with the NFL draft that happened this week. So many nuggets that we'll get into as well. But I think a good place to start is just right off the top. Like, what were your overall impressions of the NFL draft and really how they constructed and executed everything digitally?
I loved it. Honestly, I was really worried, there were going to be a bunch of, technical errors and it just wasn't going to have a nice flow to it. But it kind of made everybody seem human. Like, it made the NFL seem human. I'm not going to lie to you, Saul. I really disliked Roger Goodell, just like a lot of other people. But after watching this event, I look at Roger Goodell and say, you know what? You're not that bad of a person. Like, he just sitting in his basement in relaxing clothes, for him to be just in this relaxed environment rather than being so buttoned up and fancy. Like, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. He definitely had the Mr. Rogers vibe, and he tried to play with the crowd as much as possible, especially with the screen behind him. And by the way, creative kudos go to you by photoshopping a picture of your depressing Charger self in with the rest of the Chargers fans on that. I saw that on social media, so I thought that was pretty well done. Outside of that, there's a lot of storylines. Yeah,
Alec White was the reason for that.
There you go. Alec White always trying to jump on and bag on somebody. That's all right. It's all good. So outside of the digital stuff, and obviously I thought the one hiccup, if there was any, was just the fact that you didn't get that raw emotion when players' names were called, because they were on delay. And so oftentimes ESPN had to go back after showing the player initially to really get that emotion and cut away. And I think if they could time that better in the future, I think they'll have a lot of success, and it'll come off without a hitch. But overall, I thought it was a very well done NFL draft, considering the circumstances. Jerry Jones has already gone on record saying, he would expect that something similar to this will be the case moving forward. And the sports world is changing, man. I don't think there's going to be a lot of things that are going to change after this, and some of them for the better, and some of them we're just going to have to deal with. So
you also have to think about the circumstances, though, because I saw a tweet earlier that said the ratings were higher for the NFL draft than like Game 5 of last year's NBA Finals. It's like those numbers are really flawed because, one, the NBA Finals didn't have LeBron James. It was the Toronto Raptors going up against the injured Golden State Warriors. So there really wasn't much interest in that game. Yeah. And then the NFL draft, it's literally the only live sporting event going on right now. So even people who don't normally watch the draft, they're sitting there watching rounds 4 through 7 because it's literally the only thing going on. I really enjoyed it, but you also have to consider the circumstances. Would it have been as successful if there wasn't the coronavirus going on? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's jump into what people really want to hear about. Our top 5 takeaways on the top 5 moments of the NFL draft. And we're not talking about your favorite player getting drafted. We're not talking about Isaiah Simmons getting drafted by the Cardinals or anything. No. We're talking about top 5 kind of off the screen kind of moments that we thought really tickled our fancy, at least. And we're going to start off with number 1. Mike Vrabel had a very interesting setup at his house. And folks, I don't know what the hell is going on in this photo. But this dude over here on the right-hand side, wearing the number 50 jersey, you got Frozone, and then it looks like you have somebody back there possibly going number 2 on the toilet. I'm not sure what is going on. When you first saw this, Justin, what did you think?
That's a man's house, because you want to know why? At a man's house, they poop with the door open. They go number 2 with door open. I don't know what's going on in that corner there with that guy using the bathroom, but yeah, I just, it looks like a fraternity house.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is very crazy. Of all the setups that I saw, this was by far the strangest one. Also the most intriguing one, because I have so many questions. Like, what's Frozone doing? Why is he standing there like a security guard? What's going on? And why is number 50 standing there like that? And he's got, I don't know what this, I hesitate to make fun of people sometimes because I don't know what the circumstance is. And, you know, if they're a person that doesn't have their faculties all together, I don't really want to bag on them. But I mean, bruh, with the haircut, come on now.
Bringing the mullet back.
Yo, I mean, with a vengeance.
Is that Mike Vrabel's jersey, by the way? That number 50 jersey?
Yeah, I believe so.
Is that like a Pro Bowl jersey or something?
Yeah. And then I don't know what's the story with his daughter, it looks like, sitting crisscross applesauce. Like, last time I saw a kid do that was like back in like kindergarten when we were lining up to go to the cafeteria or something like that. So a lot of stuff to unpack there. And so I thought it was pretty interesting. Obviously, there's far more to get into. So with our next one, obviously, we just talked about him a little bit ago. Roger Goodell. So many things that people pay attention to when it comes to the M&Ms, and
oh yes,
and as the draft wore on, the M&M jar got thinner and thinner and thinner, and I'm pretty sure Roger Goodell put on a good 10 pounds over the weekend.
Yeah, of M&Ms.
yeah, 10 pounds. 10 pounds.
Like
so.
there was you could see as the draft progressed, the M&Ms like slowly start to go down. Like round 1, he had a full jar, and then by the time day 3 came, like there were probably about a dozen M&Ms left. And Roger Goodell actually addressed it and said, "Yes, all I've been eating are M&Ms." So. But hey,
pretty crazy, pretty fun. How
it's like all of us in quarantine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I gotta get back to the gym for sure, or at least run or do something, do a yoga workout or do a sit up or a push up, something. Saul, Jesus,
one sit up, one M&M.
Yeah, exactly. Just feed me every time I come back up, man. And then obviously when we look at some of the things that family related came about were very interesting. This being, to me, my favorite because I mean, the picture says it all, man. I don't know what is going on right now, but Mama ain't having it. She gets yanked out with a quickness. Isaiah Wilson just gets picked by the Ravens, and Mom quickly throws the girlfriend or whoever that was out of the frame. I thought that was hilarious. So
look at the way the camera angle is set up. Yeah. As soon as Isaiah Wilson gets picked, it's zoomed in right on him, and his girlfriend's sitting right there. She automatically hugs him and is holding him and cherishing him, and that's just stealing away his shine. That's
for sure.
I've seen other girlfriends during the draft give their significant other who just had their life changed a peck on the kiss, a congratulations, stepped aside and let him have his moment. That's what good girlfriends do. This one, Isaiah Wilson's girlfriend, just was like, okay, I'm going to get in the whole camera, and I'm just going to hug you, make it look like a good girlfriend. And Mom saw that and said, no, because you know what? There's a good possibility you're not going to be in the picture by next year. So get out.
Hey,
get out.
Justin's just saying the things that we all want to say that we all pretty much know are true, but it's true. I mean, come on, man. Look at Russell Wilson. That's like the epitome of a draft day. she's the horse face, and I mean, she didn't last more than a couple months, and then that was it. And then he was on to like Sierra or somebody like that. So, I mean,
strong,
hey,
independent woman.
hey, money changes a lot of things, and sometimes it's the significant other, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on the circumstance. But I thought it was pretty funny, and then we move on to, I think, the biggest power move of the weekend. I mean, Jerry Jones showed his yacht, sure, that's cool, but I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, come on now, this is how you do it, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, look at the pad. I mean, there's so much to unfold here too. Look at the backyard with the fire pit and the hanging beds and the pool that you can kind of see in the back. I mean, pretty dope.
Look at that pad, man. That's what being a millionaire in Arizona does. Like if Cliff Kingsbury is coaching California, how does pad look? Because
probably not like that.
Okay.
Probably not like that.
That's the luxury of living in Scottsdale, Arizona, of all places. But the fact that like you get this wide view, one leg on the table, like Cliff Kingsbury knew what he was doing when somebody took that picture.
Hey, I just want to let you know, first of all, that this house is about 4.5. Like I got it on a very good source that this is not a cheap buy by any stretch of the imagination. Actually, the builder of this home actually tweeted it out from their company Twitter.
Oh, really?
I forgot what the name of the company was, but I saw it earlier today. So yeah, it's not a cheap house. So 4.5 can get you quite a bit in California too. This is it's a beautiful house, mountain ranges in the back. It's just picture perfect Kingsbury. He's got a wine, by the way. There's a wine like room in there as well. And I mean, if you saw all the pictures, you can look it up on Zillow actually, but you're gonna have to do your homework because I'm not gonna throw a man's address out there like that.
If you were to have a house like Cliff Kingsbury, what's the one thing you absolutely have to have?
Ooh, that's
like
a
in
good
a room,
question.
In house.
I think one of the things that I've always wanted, besides the wine room, because I've been into wines lately, I would love like a premium indoor sauna.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, premium. How about you?
Sauna or steam room?
Yeah, sauna. Yeah.
Okay.
Sauna.
I'm more of a steam room guy.
One of those infrared saunas.
Okay, I like that.
The steam room, the problem with the steam room is like, there's so much water, and it's like, I don't want to clean all that up. I'll just stick with the sauna.
Okay.
It's a dry heat.
Okay.
How about you?
We're used to saying that out here in Arizona. I would probably say a cigar room / pool table room. You got to have a man cave. If you're going to have, Cliff Kingsbury money, you're going to be living in Scottsdale, having a house like that. I would love to have a place where I can just go kick it, watch games, maybe invite over a few friends and have a cigar room. I thought it would be cool to have like this giant walk-in humidor of some of the greatest cigars that money can buy.
Okay, nice.
So that's what I would have in my house.
So, and obviously the winner of the weekend, the most viral moment of the weekend, and whether you want to say it was, fortunate or not fortunate, it doesn't matter. This by far stole the show this weekend. Obviously, it was CeeDee Lamb, and I mean the tape speaks for itself. It's bruh, like, okay, so this girl's name, his girlfriend, is her name is Crimson Rose. Okay, and as you see in the video, she snatches his phone and then he snatches it back. So many things to unfold here. First of all, where do you stand on the whole phone security thing, especially if you're with if you have a girlfriend or fiance or wife?
Well, she thought she was slick because she saw an opportunity. She realized, okay, my significant other is caught in a life-changing moment. Like he's about to be a millionaire. The biggest moment, everything he's been working towards is now finally coming true. So, he's talking on his business phone. Look at the personal phone just sitting there. You know how many people are going to reach out to him after he was announced that not only is he going to the NFL, but he's going to the Dallas Cowboys, probably the most recognized football brand in the entire world. So a lot of people are going to be, hitting him up, congratulating him. And then there comes the leeches and the ones that, you're worried about. And then all the little insecurities happen. Like, man, was I really, just, someone that was just going to get him to the draft process, and maybe he's going to find somebody better because now that he's rich. So maybe she saw a great opportunity and reached for the phone, and then CeeDee Lamb says, wait, what? Yeah, those are great instincts, and that's what makes CeeDee Lamb a first-round prospect. That's something that Mel Kiper should have had in his draft preview.
Hey, you can't teach that kind of talent right there.
That's first round, and that's why Jerry Jones hit a home run in the draft.
The intangibles are off the charts. Also, by the way, a little side nugget for those of you who didn't know, but it was definitely, Twitter is undefeated when it comes to investigations, right? Well, they figured out that this woman is the former girlfriend of one Trae Young out in Atlanta, and Trae tweeted out on draft night when he saw this, which is
setting himself up.
Like, bruh, oh man, you shouldn't have said that. So now this girl, Crimson Rose, is now very, very, she's very Twitter famous, very social media famous. And, to me, hey, you don't mess with another person's phone, period. Like, I have a fiance. If something were to happen and the phone rings, like, go ahead, pick it up. I don't care. I have nothing to hide. I'm not trying to hide anything, but I think everybody deserves a little bit of privacy on their own material, and that's kind of how I go. Now I will say fully fledged that I was the victim of some stupid things earlier in my life, but as a mature man, I know, hey, I got my business clean. I'm not stupid, anything I'm not supposed to be doing. And the fact that if I was in a relationship and all of a sudden she was just looking through my phone, oh man, we got a whole other set of issues to go through for sure.
But if you go back and look at that video, look at CeeDee Lamb's mom just looking at it the entire time, watching the whole process. And then as soon as he yanks the phone out of her hands, CeeDee Lamb's mom just kind of gives her the side eye like, yeah, I'm watching you. I've got my eyes on you.
I mean, that's a tough position to be in, especially if you're the girlfriend. Like, I know you're happy and you're excited for the man you're with, and you've been, you've probably seen him go through a lot of things. Although Crimson Rose, I don't know how long she's been with CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, she was with Trae Young before, so can't imagine like she's been through the grind of his career. But nonetheless, like Mama was, you know what I mean? And so I think I would be protective if one of my sons or my daughter was in a position like this. I'd be like, hey, you need to step out of the frame. Like,
yeah,
because you might not be around very, very much longer.
But now, while that was a questionable move on her part, I do applaud her and appreciate her for not really making such a big deal about it when he took the phone back. She just kind of like, okay, and just, moved her head to the side and just played it off, where she could have easily made a big deal about it on national TV and just completely ruin his draft moment. So I appreciate her for doing that.
For sure. Who you got as an honorable mention for, the top 5 that didn't make it, a draft moment out there that you thought was like, oh, that was pretty cool?
So there was an offensive lineman. He was drafted out of St. John's and in Minnesota. And he goes by the name of Ben Barch. This is a Division III school in Minnesota, like I just mentioned, St. John's. And when he first came in to college, he was originally a tight end, and he weighed about 250 pounds. Well, they realized, okay, well, this is a big dude. We need to put some weight on him. Yeah. So what did Ben Barch do? In order to gain weight and become a great offensive lineman, every single day, Ben Barch drank a protein shake that consisted of 7 eggs, cottage cheese, grits, peanut butter, banana, and to top it all off, put some Gatorade in there.
Oh, man.
Imagine all of those. 7 eggs, cottage cheese, grits, peanut butter, banana, Gatorade, all into a blender. Blend all up, drinking it. I mean, that's a Gaines meal right there. And it's disgusting, but obviously it worked for Ben Barch. That was my favorite moment. I don't know about you.
Oh man, I think if I was to say a favorite moment, I think the 5 that we covered were pretty much the top. But Belichick feeding his dog, I thought that was pretty cute. That was a pretty good moment right there. And and then also Jerry Jones's yacht. I mean, that's an easy one, right? You can't hate on that. So Jerry Jones, $250 million yacht sitting there. God knows where he was at in the middle of the ocean, probably staying free and clear of all the troubles of the world, and doing his draft there. So life is good if you're Jerry Jones. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Now, and the one thing I didn't like about the draft, and Saul, I know you stand behind this 100%. It seems like every draft pick had just the worst story attached to their name.
Oh my gosh. I will say this.
A family member passing away, like T. Higgins from Clemson said his mother was battled drug addiction for 16 years.
ESPN put that out there.
Or ESPN put that out there.
Yeah, ESPN put that out there as a graphic.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I thought that was very, very bad taste. Like, obviously, a lot of these guys have some instances of overcoming obstacles in their life, and some of these, make the man who they are. And I have no doubt that T. Higgins had to deal with his mom's, drug addiction in a way. But we're talking about a young man who's experiencing the best day of his life, right? And to bring him down, in my opinion, with somebody else's issues and what he had to deal with somebody else's issues, I thought was inconsequential. Like it did not matter. It should not have been brought up. And ESPN actually put out a statement today apologizing for that, saying that was a big time error and that they should never have done that, which I appreciate. But again, you have to also look at the dynamic of the NFL draft. A lot of them are young African-American men. And when you're constantly putting, so-and-so drug addiction, so-and-so drug addiction, so-and-so overcame single parent household, his mom only raised, like you're like feeding into a stereotype that I think is unfortunate. And it is not right. And so, in my opinion, ESPN really kind of crapped the bed when it came to some of those stories, because they were irrelevant to who that person was and where they had come from on this day. You can talk about their story later on down the road. You can put it in better context. But in this moment, there was no way to put proper context and actually explain why his mom's drug addiction made him the man who he is. So just leave it off the screen.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, there were also other good stories. I agree with adding human interest to the NFL draft, because you want to get to know these guys. You don't want them to just be a number going to this NFL team and you have no idea about them. Like we talked about in the last podcast, Austin Jackson's story from USC, donating bone marrow to his sister. I mean, that's a great story. That's things that we want to hear. But it's like literally every other draft pick. His grandfather died in 2006. His mother died. And it's like, okay, this is getting way too much. So
sometimes, let's just, let's pepper it in every now and then. Let's not beat everybody over the head, because they, for instance, for like me, if I was a draft pick coming out when I was 20 years old, they would probably be like, his mom and dad are deaf and he had to, raise his sisters and blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, I don't give a damn. Like, just tell them my 40 speed and let's wrap it up, man. Let's go.
Wrap it up, B.
No, man, I'm not trying to hear how my sister played the saxophone when I was like studying in the next room, and then I would help her study by, help her read her music notes. Like, I don't give a damn about that. Let's just go. Justin, who do you think had the best overall draft?
I hate to say it, but America's team, the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh,
I honestly think, they had the best draft, starting with CeeDee Lamb. Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb. It's 1 or 1A. Like, these guys are the two best receivers in the draft class, in my opinion. And the fact that one of the best offenses in the NFL got that as another weapon, I mean, that's pretty solid. And also getting the cornerback out of Alabama, Trevon Diggs, I thought was awesome. And then a steal for them, getting in addition to that defensive line, Bradley and I. Us being in Pac-12 country, we have the luxury of staying up late, close to like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, watching football games.
Sure do.
And shout out Larry Scott. And so we see these guys on a weekly basis. Bradley and I was one of Utah's best defenders last year. The fact that the Cowboys were able to get that guy in the 5th round, I thought was a steal. I got to go with the Cowboys as the best team in the draft.
Awesome. Well, I could go the Homer route, which I might. I actually thought Miami did a fantastic job. They got a quarterback. The second, poor Josh Rosen. Poor Josh Rosen.
He's going to go to New England.
One one year he gets drafted by the Cardinals, and then they just don't feel they're not feeling the Rosen love, right? So they got Kyler Murray on the board. They take Kyler Murray. Rosen gets shipped off to Miami. Miami gives him a shot. Doesn't perform the way he needs to, and then they're like, you know what, we're going to draft Tua Tagovailoa. Like, hey, by the way, Roger Goodell, see how I pronounce that? That's how you say Tua Tagovailoa. He had all this time to practice, and he screwed it all up. I don't even understand that. But regardless, I thought they did a great job of not only getting him, but also beefing up their defensive lines. The Arizona Cardinals, I thought, did a fantastic job as well. I know they got it rated as a B, but I mean, they had some holes to fill defensively, offensively. They really bolstered that defensive line by drafting 2 defensive tackles. One of them out of LSU, the other one, I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, and then Isaiah Simmons. From Utah. Yeah. And so then they obviously they got Isaiah Simmons, who I think is if there's ever a team out there that is in love with the hybrid linebacker safety type, it is the Arizona Cardinals. Adrian Wilson was that type. And then Deion Buchanan was that type. They know how to draft guys that can maneuver and play in different positions. And I know that a lot of critics were talking about how they did not exploit or they didn't go after an offensive tackle earlier, but they got Josh Jackson later on, who was a potential first-round pick out of Houston, a big guy that can play right tackle. And so I thought they did a fantastic job overall of adding. And then they finished off the whole draft, and I know a lot of people locally were just like clamoring over this because it's Eno Benjamin from ASU, but I do like Eno Benjamin. I thought he kind of took a step back this year at ASU, but I do like the overall skill set that he has. He's a hard runner. He's quick. He's fast, and he's tough. And so I think all those combined, I thought the Cardinals probably had the best draft, in my opinion, out of anybody. Baltimore pretty close too. They had solid work because Baltimore drafts guys that are Baltimore guys. They fill up the defensive line, defensive and offensive lines, and they pound you with the linebackers. That's what they do. Like, and every single draft pick that they had really fit that mold. Isaiah Jackson being one of those that we just showed.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for Freddie Coleman to show up here any minute now, so we can talk about this Last Dance. But as we kind of go through this, man, what an episode 3 and 4 it was tonight.
I didn't know what to expect, and in order to get ready for tonight's episode 3 and 4, rather than watching episodes 1 and 2, I decided to watch the Dennis Rodman documentary just to get, a lot of background information on him, just to, run my memory through and just see where he came from. And then that got me ready for episode 3. But man, Dennis Rodman, an NBA player unlike any other in history.
Yeah.
And his background is just so insane. The fact that he was homeless for a couple of years, his mom kicked him out of his house when he was 18 years old, and he was working at like the Dallas Fort Worth airport as like a janitor. And then all of a sudden he grows like 11 inches, goes to college in the middle of the boonies in Oklahoma and Southeast Oklahoma State, and just becomes this star. And then the Bulls draft him, or excuse me, the Pistons draft him at number 27. People are like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
And he was quiet, didn't really, talk much, was an introvert. And then all of a sudden, years later, he's wearing a wedding dress. Was it in New York or Chicago?
It was in New York.
Yeah. Wearing a wedding dress in New York with the blonde wig, with the cheetah hair. Dennis Rodman, like I said, is someone that we've never seen in the NBA in the NBA. So I really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed seeing Dennis Rodman and a little bit of his personal life. Good for him. We're talking about the 90s here, and he's dating Madonna and Carmen Electra. I mean, in the 90s, that was a pretty big deal. And Dennis Rodman was that.
When he was dating Carmen Electra was at like the peak of her popularity. She was like a stunner. She was all over like MTV. She was all over, I want to say Baywatch too. I could be
Yeah.
wrong with that. She was in Scream. And so like it was some big time stuff going on with Dennis Rodman. So I mean, hey, Dennis Rodman had some game there, being able to pull down essentially one of the biggest pop female icons of all time, in Madonna. And then, you move on to, Carmen Electra. And Carmen Electra, I don't know how old she is, but she still looks pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And they talk to her currently.
yeah.
She looks great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, hey, I just thought the Dennis Rodman, I love how they talked about Dennis Rodman. They build that whole dynamic. And then you get into the Pistons. And I hope people realize just how physical it really was, back then in those days. And as we speak, we do finally have Freddie Coleman from ESPN joining us. Freddie, how you doing today?
I'm good, Saul and Justin. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. First impressions of the documentary, episodes 3 and 4. The first thing that comes to your mind as soon as it ended, what was it?
Dennis Rodman's a wild boy, man. I mean, we all knew that from the beginning anyway. We all had our suspicions, but they were really confirmed because the Chicago Bulls, especially Phil Jackson, they clearly understood that if he wanted to have a vacation, if he wanted to get his yayas out and go to Las Vegas, you could not stand in his way because that would not have wrecked the team, but that would not have been a good situation. So I don't know if the funniest part was the fact that they let him go do that, or the fact that Carmel Electra had to hide from Michael Jordan because she was in a state of undress. So she did not want to have her first time meeting Michael Jordan be completely in the buff in that situation in Las Vegas.
Absolutely. We were just talking about that. Carmen Electra. I mean, Dennis Rodman, come on now. He had to have a little bit of game to pull down Madonna and Carmen Electra. And Carmen Electra at the height of her popularity in the mid 90s. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. And I think people forget about that charisma that Dennis Rodman had to have had, off camera.
Well, when you're a big personality, you're going to attract people. You're a magnet. You're a magnetic force from that standpoint. But I'll say this about Carmen Electra. Boy, has she held up well, because most people, we're talking about, this is over 21 years ago in 97, 98, when you guys are right. She was at the height of her powers. And then you look at her now in the year 2020, I'm thinking, you can walk in a lot of places. You're going to turn some heads. You're going to stop some traffic if you're Carmen Electra. And the fact that she was so transparent, because if she wasn't going to be transparent, Dennis Rodman was. And then we see behind the scenes where they're toasting each other and throwing down kamikazes and everything like that. I knew this was going to open up a lot of things. I don't think anybody could have anticipated that we would get really a behind the scenes of Dennis Rodman going hard in his 96 plus hours away from the Chicago Bulls.
Freddie, I love Dennis Rodman's history, being homeless for a couple of years, of being an introvert and going through a small school and really being a diamond in the rough prospect. He was always a shy, quiet guy. When did you realize he was going to be a rock star in the NBA?
I don't think anybody anticipated that when he first got to the NBA. And to your point, my wife, Denise, and I were discussing this, watching the documentary tonight, and how much pain has he been able to try to hide or try to get past after what he had gone through in his childhood. And I'll never forget the story that he told when he got inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, that his dad had 36 children. So there are plenty of brothers and sisters out there that he doesn't have any idea that he's related to. And he relayed that story to everybody when he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. So, Justin, you're right. In terms of him being a superstar, we knew that he had that personality. But then he went whole hog with it, where he went beyond the NBA. But I also thought that the essence of Dennis Rodman was when he gave his shoes to a kid who loved him and had wanted his autograph, and he gave him a little bit more than that. And then he signed for so many different people. He was completely right by saying, people see one aspect of me and they think that's the real me. They don't have any idea what they're talking about. I can't even imagine we're ever going to find out the real Dennis Rodman. And it's probably better that we don't find out exactly how real he can actually be.
For sure. So many great one-liners tonight in tonight's episodes. My favorite being the one
Ron Harper.
Ron Harper was great, but it got topped at the end by Michael Jordan. When he was talking about Isaiah.
Yep.
I loved it. You know what? I know Michael was afraid of how he was going to be perceived, with all the cussing and stuff like that. I don't know about you guys, but I've enjoyed it. It gives me a better insight as to who he was and really the mindset he had the entire time he was with the Bulls, and even now.
You look at Michael Jordan, he had final say over what was going to be shown to us over a 10-part documentary. And apparently he's not putting anything and hiding anything. He's taken us to so many different places in the first 4 parts of the documentary. And I'm with you, Saul. The best part was not so much his one-liner, but the look on his face when they replayed and showed him the video of Isaiah Thomas saying, we had known then. He was like, yeah, whatever. He's like saying, you know what? I didn't believe that 29 years ago. I'm not going to believe it 29 years later. You can say whatever you want, but you guys are completely classless. We decided not to shake our hands. And then Jordan brought the truth of the matter by saying, we shook their hands the 2 years before in a row that we had lost to them. So Jordan wasn't trying to hear about that's how things were done then. He was like, whoa, wait a minute. We didn't do that. So why would you do it? So it was clearly the case of Michael Jordan not leaving anything to chance, number one. Number two, letting everybody know this was what was going on with the robbery of the Pistons, on the plane, hanging out, playing cards. How about that exchange that Dennis Rodman had with Craig Sager, where Craig Sager gives him $20 to pay his fine, and Dennis Rodman says he's trying to get an interview. I know that, Jim. I'm not trying to buy that from that standpoint. There have been so many things that we can really sink our teeth into and wrap our minds around, and we still got 6 more parts to go.
I don't know if you guys can see, but I still have goosebumps from Mike Wilbon cussing. I've never heard Wilbon cuss before. And we finally saw it. I thought that was so great.
Remember, Michael Wilbon's Chicago broad now, so they can get down a little bit with the salty language. They may be church-going people on Sunday, but they'll get into the inner sailor Monday through Saturday if you give them a chance.
Hey, Freddie, I think one of the things that I think all us old school guys, I'm 40, so I grew up in the Jordan era, late 80s. That's when I fell in love with basketball. All we were hoping to see and hoping that the younger generation will see is how physical and how tough it was to get through the Detroit Pistons and other teams at that time. It wasn't just, I'm going to slap you on the wrist to push you down. It was, our goal is to hurt you. You come into the paint, like they said, the Jordan rules, you step 1 foot in the paint, you should be on the ground. Do you think they captured it? Do you think they captured the entire feel of how physical it was back then?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And think about this, guys. This really got started in 1984 NBA Finals when the Boston Celtics played the Los Angeles Lakers, and Kurt Rambis got taken down in that series. And then that kind of set the stage for no easy layups, make sure that they earned their way to the basket. And I remember watching those series involving the Chicago Bulls and Detroit Pistons. And I always had a great affinity for the Pistons. They knew exactly who they were. They didn't mind being the kind of guys that were going to a town, shoot the sheriff, get the saloon girl, and head to the next town. They really embraced that philosophy because they knew that was the best way to win. And the New York Knicks did the same thing afterwards, where they get an Anthony Mason and join him with Charles Oakley. And for 1 year, they had Xavier McDaniel. And they were not letting any easy looks for anybody, especially had a chance to get a layup. So I think they've really been able to capture that. And I think the best part about it was seeing the response from the Chicago Bulls. And John Sally said it best. When they knocked down Scottie Pippen in Game 4, when the Bulls swept them in 1991, Scottie Pippen gets up and didn't say anything, didn't bark back at them. And John Sally said, when we saw that, we knew we were done because we could not get in his head. And that was a guy that we felt was a weak link mentally for the Chicago Bulls. If we couldn't do that to him, he said right then and there, he knew that was over. And I thought that captured the essence of you got to battle through those situations. And the Bulls were able to do that and start that run of winning 6 championships in 8 years.
Question for both of you guys. Where do you stand on Bill Laimbeer? Because I always thought, he's a physical guy, kind of like Danny Ferry at Duke. And then when, they're about to lose to the Bulls, he's over there telling the guys on the bench, we're not shaking their hands. We're not, like, he was the guy that incited not shaking hands with the Bulls, which I thought was pretty cowardly.
Put it this way. I was not surprised by that at all because I've been very fortunate to talk to Bill Laimbeer on a couple of occasions at ESPN Radio. He embraces that. He says, I've always loved being that jerk. And I asked him one time, I said, when did that start? He said, when I was about 4 years of age growing up. And I'm thinking it started that early when it comes to Bill Laimbeer. He has never minded that because he never had to question what the philosophy was with the Detroit Pistons. They all were lockstep in being that kind of jerk, being that kind of you-know-what, especially when they lived the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan is a bunch of pretty boys and saying, man, we're going to dirty this game up. Because Isaiah Thomas said it best. He said, yeah, we knew the NBA was about having that line with Magic, Larry, and then the Michael, and we wanted to crash the party. So they didn't mind doing that. And Bill Laimbeer was the perfect embodiment of that. Because how many times you have a guy, I've counted at least 7 different games where someone has literally punched him in the face during a game. Larry Bird got him a couple of times. Robert Parrish did it. Charles Oakley did it. Xavier McDaniel did it. But he relished stuff like that because I think he honestly believed that if he was able to do something like that and get under your skin, then your focus was not going to be on what it was supposed to be with your basketball team. And then they honestly believe they could get at you, not just physically, but also get into your heads.
You know, the great thing I think about Laimbeer is also how it kind of paid itself forward, right? With Dennis Rodman on that team. You know, Dennis Rodman very much embraced those same Laimbeer characteristics as we got to 96, 97, 98. He was the pest. He was the one that was instigating, especially with Karl Malone, as you remember. You know, and so I just think that was the fascinating part of this whole series and how they put it all together. The Detroit Pistons. I mean, that was just a fun watch tonight. I thought these two episodes were far better than I think the first two. The first two, you kind of know what to expect.
Right.
But this one with Rodman, I don't think any of us really know how deep it really went. And they just scratched the surface. So
yeah, and I knew part 3 and part 4 were going to be good. And I had conditioned myself to say, okay, this is going to be a letdown because I didn't think it was going to be as good as part 1 and part 2. And you're right. It was even better. Like some of the things we found out about Dennis Rodman, and then Isaiah Thomas explaining the story about the Boston Celtics did the same thing to us that we decided to do to the Chicago Bulls because that's the way things were done then, saying that I pulled Kevin McHale back because those guys were leaving after we finally were able to take him down. Also, they had a chance to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. I always talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers in the 80s and 90s as that lost basketball team, that they were a team that they were born at the wrong time. I compare them to the Portland Trail Blazers in the Western Conference. Can you imagine Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson or the Detroit Pistons were not around? We could have had the Detroit Pistons not Detroit Pistons. We could have had on one side the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Portland Trail Blazers on the other side that had terrific players. But sometimes, as Pat Riley said before, you can be born at the wrong time. And I look at Brad Daugherty and Mark Price and Larry Nance and poor Craig Eloy. That's going to be on his tombstone. Here lies Craig Eloy, underrated player, but yet Michael Jordan hit the shot over him that started Michael Jordan's big game ability. And he played great defense on that play. Sometimes the guy's just better than you. So I always look at
Ron Harper would disagree to this day, obviously, as we saw.
Ron Harper can say whatever he wants. You can't play better defense than Craig Eloy did. And if anybody should know that, is Ron Harper, because he played basketball with Michael Jordan and against him for a long time. You got to give Craig Eloy credit, but you got to give Michael Jordan credit. And that's been one of the best things about the first 4 parts of this, is that so many guys are starting to get their due for how terrific they were, how great they were, and how they're able to provide a balance no matter what team that they're playing on, either for the Chicago Bulls or against them.
Freddie, real quick, we kind of buried the lead here, but how are you doing? How are you adjusting to life? In the studio, out the studio. What's your day-to-day operations like now?
Well, I tell people all the time, one of my favorite sayings is you do the best you can with what you got, and that's exactly where we're all in right now. No matter what profession that we work in, no matter what we're trying to do, but my family is more than relatively safe. My wife and I, she has not threatened to throw me out of the house yet, so I have not gotten on her nerves, which has been a good thing. I'm also very blessed to work for a company where they can provide the resources for you, where you can do a show from home and you can still do a national show. So we're doing everything possibly that we can to stay healthy. When we go out, we make sure we keep our distance from everybody when we decide to do that. So we're maintaining, like I said, doing the best we can in the situation that all of us are having to be a part of right now.
And the beautiful thing about doing radio from home is you get to be in t-shirt and shorts all the time, which I think is awesome.
Absolutely.
You get to work in comfortable clothes. That's an awesome luxury to have.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about putting on my jeans and my shoes and going out and getting into my vehicle, even though my commute from my house to ESPN radio on the main campus is about 12 minutes. So I've gone from a 12-minute commute to a 12-step program, where it's only 12 steps to go from downstairs to upstairs, where I can do the show in my home office. But I know these are trying times, but I tell people all the time, yeah, it's easy to say we're going to get through it, because I firmly believe we're all going to get through it one way or another. But I also wonder what kind of scars are going to be left on us as human beings, because there's no way that whenever things start to get to where they used to be, it's not going to be the same. And more than ever before, when this whole thing kind of slides away, we're going to have to continue to make those kind of adjustments, where we're going to have to live a different way, not so much a healthier way, gentlemen, but a different way than what we're used to. And I wonder how much of that could not only affect sports, for example, but just people's everyday lives.
Absolutely. You can catch Freddie Coleman on ESPN Radio, Freddie and Fitzsimmons. Pretty much, it feels like every night. Every night I get into the car, I hear Freddie and Fitzsimmons all the time, and you guys always do such a great job. You keep me entertained and laughing. I know Justin's a big fan as well. We're just huge supporters of your broadcast, and we appreciate you jumping on and helping us kind of get this thing off the ground. It's a new adventure for us, and it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you guys, because I was telling my wife I was looking so forward to having where we have Zoom and StreamYard, where you guys are streaming this broadcast, where people get a chance to be a part of your podcast on Facebook and also on Twitter. So I tell people all the time, anytime you can get your thought process out there, you should be able to do it, because more than ever before, there's so many different avenues, not only to receive information, but also to get your thoughts out there, to get your personalities out there. So it's always cool to help something like this get off the ground and have this as a trampoline point for what I think is going to be bigger and better things to come for you guys.
That's why he's a legend, Freddie Coleman, right there. Freddie, we appreciate your time, man.
Anytime, Saul. Anytime, Justin, man. You guys take care and be well.
Thanks, Freddie.
Safe. Absolutely.
All right, Freddie Coleman right there from ESPN joining us on the live stream. Hey, that was pretty dope.
I didn't want to be weird, Saul, but I have an Amazon Echo here, and I always have ESPN Radio on. I almost wanted to say, hey, Freddie, just so you know, every single night your voice is around my house. But I felt like that definitely would have been weird. So I was like, I'm going to save it when he gets off.
I also didn't want to say he probably has one of the most recognizable voices in the industry. And also, I mean, if you had to rank like the sexiest voices in radio broadcasting, he's got to be up there, right?
Oh, absolutely.
He's just got this deep, it's very Barry White-ish, like just, hey, baby.
Like I would pay $20.
I don't know where you're gonna go with this.
For Freddie Coleman to do my voicemail.
Okay, I'm glad you said that and you didn't say something else crazy. Okay, but yeah, man, I think again, the Jordan documentary was fantastic. And before we wrap this show up, we gotta mention we are on YouTube now. Some of you are watching us on YouTube, which we very much appreciate. Facebook last week was a big success. Thank you so much to everybody who was subscribed to our podcast. We will take this audio in case you missed it, or if you're catching the end of this stream, we'll post it tomorrow on all podcast platforms. But it's just been fun. Over almost 300 people have liked our Total BS podcast page, which I think is pretty good for a couple of
weeks. For a couple of weeks, I think that's not bad.
We're now like 8 days into this, so fantastic as we look to continue to churn and move forward.
But I will say this, you can watch us every night or every Sunday night, and I do encourage it because you get to see our personalities. You get to see all the cool videos like that we just did with the NFL draft. But if you want to listen back to this podcast, we're on Spotify and we're now on Apple Podcasts, Saul.
Yep.
This week we finally got on iTunes. So we are everywhere, my man. And of course, we do have our day job at the Arizona Daily Star. Saul doing his thing at Fox Sports Arizona. So we're always pumping out content. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter.
For sure. At Saul_Bookman and at Justin E Sports, or follow the podcast as well on Twitter at the Total BS Pod is what it's called. Like I said, we're trying to branch out. We're trying to do new things and give you information. And if there's a suggestion or there's something that you'd like us to talk about one time, hey, just drop it in the Facebook page and we'll take a look. And we definitely take all suggestions. We have no questions tonight, so pretty easy night. Brett Farah, if anybody didn't know, he's one of our mentors from back in the day. He wrote a pretty nice post about the Rodman part and Jordan coming off not as much a jerk as people think maybe thought he was going to come off as. But I've been very impressed by Michael Jordan in this whole documentary.
Only 4 parts in. We still have 6 more to go, and we still have to discuss the time he punched Steve Kerr in the face in practice.
I am so looking forward to that episode. I can't wait. I want to know what happened, like in detail. Like, how did Steve Kerr get under the skin of Michael Jordan? Like, what happened here? But you can kind of see that kind of boiling to a point a little bit, not with Steve Kerr specifically, but his frustration in that final season, and why things were kind of going a little haywire. But again, the mark of a great team is they learn how to get through adversity, even if it's self-imposed. The great teams have always had that kind of issue. and especially when they have been so successful for such a long period of time. And the Chicago Bulls, I think we're really learning how amazing that team really was and how amazing that run was.
6 more parts to go. 3 more weeks, my friend.
Absolutely. So like we said, we appreciate you all for joining us again on another podcast live stream here at Total BS. We'll be here again next week. And so, I don't think I have anything else left to say, Justin.
We're done for the night. That's it. That's all she wrote.
Hey,
Time to wrap it up.
We'll see you when you see you. Peace.